ॐ त्वमेव माता च पिता त्वमेव बन्धुश्च सखा त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणं त्वमेव सर्वं मम देवदेव। श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तिसुदेशिकेन्द्रं द्वैपायनं सूत्रकृतं मुनीन्द्रं श्रीशङ्करं भाष्यकृतं यतीन्द्रं मद्देशिकञ्चापि नमामि विद्यै। ॐ नमो ब्रह्मादिभ्यो ब्रह्मविद्यासम्प्रदायकर्तृभ्यो वंशऋषिभ्यो महद्भ्यो नमो गुरुभ्यः। सर्वोपप्लवरहितप्रज्ञानगणः प्रत्यगर्तो ब्रह्मैवाहमस्मि। ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवत्पेशिनीम्। नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयः प्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दुग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्ससुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। भीष्मद्रोणतथा जयद्रथचला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला। अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोत्तीर्णाः खलु पाण्डवैरणनदी कैवर्तकः केशवः। पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलं गीतार्थगण्डोत्कटं नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितं। लोके सज्जनषट्पदैरहरः पेपीयमानं मुदा भूयाद्भारतपङ्कजं कलिमल रघ्वंशिनः श्रेयसे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवं। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः। ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः। ॐ कृष्णाय परमात्मने नमः। So pranams everyone, we are doing the first chapter. In the last class we went through an introduction on spirituality. Why do we need to be in the spiritual path? What is the ultimate goal? And how does Bhagavad Gita or Vedanta help us to attain that? And then we give a short introduction to Bhagavad Gita itself. It is part of Mahabharata. It is given by Krishna to Arjuna, which we all know. And as I said, chapter 1 sets the scene. The Gita Upadesha does not start until chapter 2. But anyway, chapter 1 is important for us because it sets the scene, number 1. Number 2, it presents the basic human problem of samsara. Whatever we call, we have, each one of us have got different individual problems. But the one fundamental problem behind all those things is the problem of samsara. So this chapter presents the human problem of samsara, and it also introduces the Guru and Sishya, namely Krishna and Arjuna. And as I said, samsara we define in multiple, has got multiple ways to define samsara. In this chapter, Vyasacharya basically projects samsara as a combination of three. The combination of three diseases, or combination of three syndromes, or combination of three problems. And those are ragah, Sokah and Mohah. Ragah means, it's a very significant word. We will keep using this word throughout Vedanta. We always say raga dvesha, ragah, viragah, vairagya. This term keeps repeating in every lecture of Vedanta. Either it will be raga dvesha or viraga vairagya that we will be denoting. So raga is a very important, significant word. It means attachment. Attachment meaning emotional dependence, psychological addiction. And raga, typically raga dvesha, we go together. They go together. Typically wherever there is raga, if a person has raga, that person also has dvesha. Or if a person has dvesha on something, he also or she also has raga. And raga means attachment. Attachment is different from love. Love seems to be a similar and closer emotion to raga, but it is entirely different. And attachment in our Shastras is much criticized. Shastras criticize attachment, but Shastras also glorify love. Attachment is seen as a trait of a samsari. Attachment is seen as a problem that a samsari has, whereas love is presented as a trait or a characteristic of a spiritual person, a spiritually evolved person, a liberated person, a saintly person. Love is always associated with that kind of a person. So the word attachment and love has to be clearly differentiated. Vedanta is against attachment. Vedanta is all for love. Therefore, it is important for us to know what is the difference between attachment and love. So we'll go through a few points to differentiate between attachment, what is attachment and what is love. Attachment, the first point of difference is attachment is seen as selfishness, a kind of an emotional hook that we have on another person or another object or a situation. It is always comes with a selfish motive. Whereas love is selfless. Love is, there is nothing that I try to gain out of that situation or try to gain out of that relationship or I try to gain out of that object. Attachment always talks about or always is about what do I get from the other person. The other person is able to emotionally support me. The other person cares for me. It is always about what do I get from the other person. That is attachment. Whereas in the case of love, we talk about what will the other person also get from me. What can I offer to the other person? So that is the second difference between attachment and love. First is selfishness, and of course, selfishness and what do I get from the other person. It totally ignores what the other person wants or feels. Whereas in the case of love, it is selfless and it also talks about what can I give the other person. So typically, attachment is all about what am I able to take from the other person. It's all about taking. Whereas in the case of love, it's all about giving, it's all about sacrifice. What am I willing to forego for the other person is all about giving and sacrifice. Attachment is always conditional. It is only as long as it is beneficial, it is only as long as I am comfortable, that relationship or that will last. It's all conditional, whereas in the case of love, it is unconditional. It doesn't matter how the other person behaves, it doesn't matter whether the situation is there or not, this person will not get affected if the person loves the situation. So because it is conditional, it comes out of a weak mind. Attachment comes out of a weak mind. The mind is empty, it wants to hold on to something, and therefore it goes for certain conditions and holds on to that relationship or person or the object or a situation. Whereas in the case of love, it comes out of a strong mind. This mind which is capable of giving love, this mind which is able to sacrifice, this mind which is all about being unconditional. So that is love. And typically attachment is about psychological dependence. I cannot be without this person. I cannot imagine a life without this person. I cannot imagine a life without this object. I cannot imagine a life with a particular situation or a particular environment. I cannot imagine life in a different environment. So that is all attachment. So there is a psychological dependence there. Whereas in the case of love, it is independent. This person is there, happy. This person is not there, I'm okay, I'm happy still. This person loves me, it's okay. The person does not love me, it's still okay. So, and attachment depends upon the object of attachment. And I look to this object of attachment for my emotional satisfaction, for my emotional fulfillment, for my happiness. So for my happiness, I expect this person to behave or to be like this. So there is attachment. Whereas in the case of love, there is no dependence on the object of love. And what is the problem with attachment? This is where it gets into the samsara. The problem where the attachment will lead us to is it will make our intellect clouded. For the sake of this person, there are certain things that I would be willing to do because I am so attached to this person. And that means because I am so attached, it could also lead to a violation of dharma. I might be willing to do adharmic things because of that sense of attachment. It could be because of anger that comes out of it, the attachment. It could be because of the greed that comes out of the attachment. Attachment could lead to greed, attachment could lead to anger, and therefore anger could lead us to do adharmic things. And therefore the greed can also make us to do adharmic things. Whereas in the case of love, the intellect is clear, is perfect sanity, there will be no violation of dharma, there will be a balance of mind, there will be no question of any kind of agitation in the mind. Whereas in the case of attachment, there will always be agitation. Whether this person will talk to me today, whether this person will behave to me nicely, whether this person will respond to me, When will they respond? There will always kind of anxiety, agitation, and all those things. So attachment is a sign of bondage. Attachment will drag me down and make me bonded, bind me with that object of attachment. Whereas in the case of love, it's a sign of freedom. And therefore, attachment is seen as a disease. It is seen as a disease by our Shastra. Whereas love is seen as a virtue. So it's a quality that everyone must possess. Whereas attachment or raga is a quality that everybody should come out of. And normally, as I said, raga, dvesha go together. I cannot say that I don't have any attachment to anybody if I have hatred on some. If I have hatred on some people or some object then there is definitely some attachment somewhere else. In the same way, I cannot say that I don't hate anybody, but I am attached to certain things, because what happens is, whenever the object of attachment goes through a problem or goes through an issue, then whatever be the cause of the problem, my hatred will go, or rather there will be a hatred on that object which causes the problem on the object of my attachment. So I cannot say that I don't have any hatred, but I just have some attachment. Attachment and hatred go together. And it need not be only on relationships, persons, it can be on situations, it can be on objects, it can be on anything in this world. Normally we say situations, objects, people, or relationships, objects, and situations. So this is the difference between raga and love, attachment and love. Now this is raga. From raga comes shoka. Shoka means sorrow. Who is the parent of shoka? Parent of shoka is raga. Shoka is born out of raga. Wherever we have attachment, it will invariably lead to sorrow. This is what Shastras are very clear about. Wherever is your attachment, one day or other, some time or other, it will definitely lead you to sorrow. Because we are emotionally depending upon that external factor. For us to give that support, for us to give that fulfillment, for us to give that happiness, for us to give that comfort, whatever may be that. So when I am dependent on that, and when that dependence goes away, and that dependence will go away one day, which is natural. No objects in this world can last a lifetime, our lifetime, or even if it is not, we may have to leave it. The same thing with the relations. Other people, their minds will change. So their minds are not the same always. Just like our mind is not the same at all times. So it will definitely, the dependence will have to go one day or will keep going away, and then it will lead to a fall which will lead me or take me to sorrow. So this attachment is like a walking stick, because the walking stick, if I hold on to it, as long as I am holding on to it, I am strong. I can stand on my own, I say, or I think. But the moment the walking stick gives away, I cannot stand on my own. I fall down. Whereas love is like a baton, right? You hold on to your hand, It's just like nice to have it, but I don't need it for sure. So whatever be the object of attachment, one day they will go away. We have to understand that. Either they will go away or we will leave it. And when that leaves us, and when it goes away, what is left behind? Frustration, disappointment, dejection, depression, in some cases anger, shock. All these things are the only things that are left behind. So we can also do a reverse. So whenever I am depressed, whenever I am dejected, whenever I am angry, whenever I am shocked, whenever I am frustrated, then I know I have an object of attachment somewhere. That is the cause for me to go through this. And what I need to do is to identify what is the object of attachment. And as I said, it could be a relation, it could be an object, it could be just a situation, a particular environment that I am comfortable with, and somebody is trying to alter it. And that could cause me frustration, dejection, depression, and all those things. So attachment will lead to all these problems. Shoka, sorrow is one, but it could also lead us to all other issues like frustration, dejection, depression, and all those things. Now, as human beings or as jivas, we are all born with this problem. It is not that somebody is born without this problem. Everyone will have different objects of attachment, at different times also. When we were growing up, our attachments were to the toys or to the balloons that we held in our hand. And as we grow, the balloons may not be our object of attachment, but there could be somebody else, something else. There could be money, and then as we grow still older, it could be our relationships. It could be our children. So the objects of attachment keep changing, but attachment as such is there in every one of us. So Vedanta asks this question now: what preparation have you made? Because this object of attachment is going to go away one day, or you are going to leave it, and the outcome is going to be really bad, depending on your nature of this attachment, your strength of this attachment, or your intensity of this attachment. So what preparation have you made to face this potential threat? So Vedanta asks this question, and he says, forget everything, even if you may not have. Ultimately, there is something called old age that every one of us will have to face. And we are not going to yearn until we die. This old age, for financially, we want to be prepared. So we do all those preparatory works even when we are earning. So we put them into savings, we put them in insurance plans, we put them in PPF, CPF, stocks, property, bonds. Why do we do that? Because we want to make sure our old age financially we are independent, or we do not have any problem. Or rather, even when the going is good, we want to prepare ourselves for old age from a financial standpoint. Now Vedanta asks, what are you doing to prepare yourself from an emotional standpoint? Just as you are preparing yourself from a financial standpoint, don't you need to prepare yourself from an emotional standpoint? What will happen to you if you lose the object of attachment? And typically, for an object of attachment to leave us, It need not happen only at the old age. Even when we are growing up, there are so many places where we have become sorrowful because of the object of attachment. So it can happen anytime. And when there is sorrow in our mind, the mind is not in a condition to do any kind of preparatory activities. It is not willing to take any suggestions. It is not willing to accept any truth. It is not willing to accept the facts of life when the mind is in sorrow. When we lose a close one, we are in deep sorrow. At that point of time, the mind is not willing to accept death is part and parcel of every person. Every human being or every jiva who is born in this world, in this universe, would have to go through death. It's a fact of life. So we are not willing to face that reality. Because when the mind is deep in sorrow, it's not willing to take it up. So even when the mind is not affected by sorrow, even when we are normal, at that point of time, we should be able to prepare ourselves. We can never solve that pain or sorrow when the pain and sorrow is there in our mind. The preparation has to be done when the things go around us and we are still comfortable with that. If we try to solve this problem after it has struck, that approach is foolish. And our Shastras give an example or an analogy for that. It says, when a house is on fire, and the house is already on fire, if this person, is thinking about digging a well so that he can get some water to extinguish that fire, it is as foolish as trying to solve the problem of emotions or trying to solve the attachment problem when the tragedy has struck. And the tragedy strikes on a daily basis for us. Only the intensity might be different. Every day we have some frustrations. Every day we have some dejections. Every day we get some anger. We get angry. So every day there are some problems. So even when these are not big calamities, even before the big calamity strikes us, we will have to prepare ourselves. And more importantly, our body has to cooperate. When the mind is fresh, when the intellect is still able to understand things, when my sense organs are still working, when I can still hear what other people say, when I can still hear Shastras, when I can still be able to understand it, grasp it, when I am able to still sit in a place and listen to Shastras, not at the time of old age when my sense organs have failed, or my mind is not able to comprehend, or my intellect has given away. So even when the things are going well, I should be able to prepare myself. So this Sokah is something that we have to overcome and we face on a daily basis. Then Vyasacharya presents the third problem, disease, or the third disease, which is Mohah. Mohah. Mohah means delusion. When there is ragah, attachment, and Sokah, which is sorrow, so this attachment will give us consequent frustration or worry. What happens? The intellect does not function properly. The intellect is clouded. the intellect is wheeled by attachment and sorrow. And a clouded intellect, a disturbed mind will, when the mind is disturbed, the intellect will not work properly. The intellect will be in delusion. So when we take decisions during that time, those decisions mostly will be wrong. But the problem is, what is moha? The definition of moha is, definition is multiple definitions. One definition is, the wrong decision appears to be right, and the right decision appears to be wrong. That is an indication of moha. So the problem is, when the mind is affected by sorrow and the intellect gets clouded, we take some decisions. We take some decisions thinking that they are right decisions, and we will stand by those decisions that they are right. But unfortunately, because these are clouded by moha, these are all clouded by, the intellect is clouded, these decisions we do not even know, or we are not even aware that we are taking wrong decisions. So this clouded perception is called moha. And this moha will lead us, can also take us to the adharmic way. When we are strongly attached to a person and we are about to be in a sorrowful state, then we will be willing to do things that need not be dharmic. And what happens? We will start justifying, and for us, dharma will look as adharma and adharma will look as dharma. So this delusion, this confusion is called moha. And this moha will not stop just like that. That moha will lead us to another raga, another attachment. And therefore this cycle continues. It becomes a vicious cycle. Raga, Shoka, Moha. And again from Moha to another Raga, Shoka, Moha. So this cycle continues. And thus that person is never out of dependence. What will happen is, we will just move the object of attachment from one to another. The object of attachment just keeps changing, but the attachment itself will continue. So we think we would have gone over this person. I have come out of this person. I am no more emotionally attached to this person. We will think that we have successfully come over raga, only to know or realize later that just that we have shifted our object of attachment from one to another. This shifting, this shuffling, this is called as samsara. Now, this samsara, how do we get out of it? What are the steps to do? How do we come out of this vicious cycle? How do we get out of this whirlpool? Is what is being taught in Bhagavad Gita in the 17 chapters. So that by the end of it, we are an independent person. Not physical independence, not financial independence. We are talking about emotional independence. So this is about the problem of samsara as described in the first chapter, which is raga, shoka, moha. Now we will come to the setting of scene. Mahabharata, the war is about to happen. And even before the war, you know that Kauravas were on one side and then the Pandavas are on another. The Pandavas were largely dharmic and Kauravas were adharmic. And what rightfully belonged to the Pandavas, the Kauravas had taken them and were not willing to give them what was rightfully theirs. And the Pandavas used the 4 steps, Sama, Dana, Beda. Now they have no other choice but to go for Danda option. Realize that one thing, it says Ahimsa Paramo Dharma, our Shastra says that, but it is only conditional. Ahimsa Paramo Dharma, there are conditions to it. Only if something is wrong happening, then one can take up Himsa. And that taking up Himsa also depends on various other things. Whether you are doing it for selfish reason, whether you are what ashrama you are in, what varna you are in. There are a lot of other things that we have to consider. Ahimsa is required for normal day-to-day life. But if you realize, even all our deities, when we actually do some pujas, we say, Karuna Sagara, Kripa Sagara, we all have all those way to pray to our deities. But almost all of these deities also hold weapons. Rama has Kodandapani, Pinakapani, then Shiva has Pinakapani, then Sudarshana Chakra, Vishnu has Sudarshana Chakra, Ambala has Sulam, Murugan has Veil. So all these deities also hold weapons. So if the non-violent methods fail, and for the sake of Paritranaya Sadhunam Vinashaya Cha Dushkritam Dharma Samsthapanarthaya Shambhavami Yuge Yuge, for retaining or reinforcing or re-establishing dharma, certain violent means may have to be employed. And that violent means is not about killing or destroying everything. It is about removing the adharma from this world. It is just like a doctor amputating something from our body. If the body, because of sugar, some people may have some problems in their legs and they may have to get their legs amputated so that the whole body is saved. So in the same way, Bhagavan or Ishvara will do this, or the dharmic person may have to employ some violent methods to re-establish dharma. Who has the right to re-establish dharma in this world? From our shastras, from a varna standpoint, the Kshatriyas have to rectify this adharma. The Kshatriyas may have to employ non-violent means to establish dharma. Kshatriyas are the people who, in today's terms, if we say, who are the Kshatriyas? Kshatriyas are the ones who protect the country. So these are the people like the armed forces, the police. So these people are allowed to engage in violence so that the dharma is established, so that the rule of law is established. So here, Pandavas, they are Kshatriyas, they have tried a Samadhana Veda, and now they have decided war is the only solution. Now this is the situation here. Now they have come to the war. Arjuna is all geared up. He is very, for lack of better word, I would say, he's all pumped up. He wants to actually get this war done and get back the kingdom and get back what is rightfully theirs, establish dharma, move on. Now, once he comes to this battlefield, Arjuna feels like supervising the army on the other side. He wants to actually feel what it is like on the other side. He wants to know who are the people whom he is going to fight, and he basically requests Krishna to bring the chariot in front of the opposite side And then he starts surveying people. He sees who are on the other side. And there, the people he sees them in the front do not happen to be Duryodhana. If Arjuna had seen Duryodhana first when he went for the survey, his anger would have burst and there wouldn't have been any Bhagavad Gita at all. The war would have continued. The war would have started then and there. But instead of seeing Duryodhana, what Arjuna saw or who Arjuna saw was Bhishma. Then he saw Drona. And from there on, Arjuna's problem started. Arjuna's attachment towards Bhishma, Arjuna's attachment towards Drona started coming to the fore. That attachment made him get into depression, and then we will see what happens. Typically for us also, sometimes when we are working in an office environment, we are working in this institution or a company or in the corporate world, if somebody commits mistakes, report comes, and then we are in a position where we may have to take action for that, say, then what do? We typically look into the laws. According to the laws, there is a huge loss to the company. The punishment is the only solution. We have to punish this person, we may have to terminate this person, or we may have to suspend this person, or worst case, we may have to even call the police and hand over this person to this police. So this is how normally the rule of law will be established. Now suppose in the same office environment that we work in, suppose if the person who made the mistake happens to be our relative, our brother-in-law, my brother-in-law is there, or my co-brother is there, or my own brother is there, my cousin is there, my uncle is there, my nephew is there, what will happen? So far we would have been talking about the rule of law, punishment and others. But the moment this comes, this particular condition comes that, oh, this person happens to be my relative, then what will happen? Conflict comes. We are in a dilemma. We will try to justify it. We will try to say if we can actually reduce the intensity of the punishment. We will say, why don't we give the other person a chance? We will say, I will vouch for this person. He is normally not like this person. We will try to do all the things to see how we can cover up, or our mind will be definitely in a state of confusion, conflict, dilemma, sadness, sorrow, everything. Because some involvement is there. So the thing is, for us, every one of us is dharmic. Only when we have to take decisions with regards to somebody else. If it's about somebody else, we are all dharmic. We all speak the rule of law. But when it comes to ourselves, when we are caught, when somebody whom we know are caught or in a situation, at that time, we take some liberties with dharma. We try to justify it. We are not able to do what we are supposed to do. And this is what has happened with Arjuna as well. So this is the problem that Arjuna faces there. Now this war, even before the war had started, Vyasacharya had offered Dhritarashtra divine vision, Divya Chakshu, a divine vision, so that, Dhritarashtra is blind anyway, but Vyasacharya said that I will give you a divine vision wherein you will be able to watch the war from your palace. You need not go to the War front, you need not hear it from anyone. You can see the war as it happens. But Dhritarashtra declined. And he declined saying, why I didn't have the eyes when my children were growing up, when these children were growing up, when it was nice and happy, when it would have been nice and happy for me to watch them grow. And now, why would I want my children, why do I want to see my children fight? I do not want to watch them. So he declined the offer. So Vyasacharya offered that Divya Sakshu or divine vision to Sanjaya. Sanjaya is Dhritarashtra's charioteer. So he said to Sanjaya that you can watch this war from wherever you are, because you have been given this divine vision. And the divine vision was not restricted only to the war, of what is happening in the war. The divine vision will also let him be able to see what is in the minds of people, what they think. He will be able to understand. He will be able to gather. So that kind of a vision that Vyasacharya offered to Sanjaya. And the war had started. Dhritarashtra did not want to know what was happening on a moment-to-moment basis. At the end of the day, once the day was over, Dhritarashtra used to call Sanjaya and say, what has happened for the day? So Sanjaya would give him a summarized report, just as we give in the office, a summary report. These are things that happened. These people came in, these people fought, these people died, that people died, so many losses from both sides, all those kind of things. Dhritarashtra was not interested in knowing the details. He was not. This happened for 10 days. On the 10th day, Sanjaya says, Bhishma had fallen. Atho Bhishma. Bhishma had fallen. Then Dhritarashtra gets shocked. Because for him, Bhishma was somebody who cannot be won by anyone. And now he hears for the first time, Bhishma has fallen. Then what happens is, he makes Sanjaya sit and he says, now give me the details. And not just for this day, start giving me the details from what happened on the first day of the war, right from the beginning. From the time they had gathered the troops and they stood facing each other, now start giving me the details from the beginning. Just like when we have an issue in office, once there is a big issue, they will go into the details to get the root cause analysis. So in the same way, Dhritarashtra wants Sanjaya to recollect all the happenings and start giving him the details from the beginning of the war. So this is the stage. Now we'll go to the first chapter, first sloka. अथ प्रथमोऽध्यायः धृतराष्ट्र उवाच धर्मक्षेत्रे कुरुक्षेत्रे समवेतायुयुत्सवः मामकाः पाण्डवाश्चैव किमकुर्वत सञ्जय धर्मक्षेत्रे कुरुक्षेत्रे समवेतायुयुत्सवः मामकाः पाण्डवाश्चैव किमकुर्वत सञ्जय. So Dhritarashtra asked who? Sanjaya. So he basically says, Sanjaya, this is on the 10th day. Basically 10th day Dhritarashtra asked, Dhritarashtra uvacha. Dhritarashtra means, Rashtra means nation or kingdom. Dhritarashtra means one who is supporting the kingdom, one who is supporting the Rashtra. Dhritarashtra. Sanjaya also has got a meaning. Sanjaya means some Jaya, one who has overcome. What he has overcome? one who has overcome raga dvesha, sanjaya. And because of the Dura Drishti vision that Vyasacharya had given. And how can you overcome raga dvesha? Shastra says only if you follow Shastras. If you follow Shastras regularly, properly, without any kind of what shall I say, without letting your emotions come through in the way of it, without letting your, just follow Shastras as it is, then you will be able to attain this state of overcoming raga dvesha. So Sanjaya means one who has overcome raga dvesha. Now dharma kshetre, Kurukshetra. Now Kurukshetra is a place near Delhi, and even today that place exists, and apparently it contains a lot of water bodies. I have never been there. Kurukshetra means land, Kshetra means place of Kurus, the land of Kurus. And if you really look at it, Kurus are the lineage of not just the Kauravas. We say Kauravas are they belong to the lineage of Kurus. Even Pandavas are Kurus only. Even Pandavas can be called as Kauravas. The entire Vamsha is called as Bharata Vamsha or Kuru Vamsha. They are all Kurus. So Pandavas are also actually can be called as Kauravas or Kurus. And there is a Puranic encyclopedia that contains all the lineage from Bharata and others. So now, Dharma Kshetre, Kurukshetre. Now this is a very Dharma Kshetra. It's a good word to start the Bhagavad Gita. The whole Bhagavad Gita is about Dharma. And it is about to learn what is my Dharma. So Dharma Kshetre, Kurukshetre. Kurukshetra is called as Dharma Kshetra because there had been a lot of yajnas that had happened in that place. So this is an open land where the armies are fighting. So before this war, this place had been used for a lot of yajnas, to do some charities, to do some punya karma. It's called as Vihita Sthalam. Certain places, when you go and do some punya, the punya gets multifold. Certain areas or things have that kind of power. That's why when we say, go to a Kashi to do this, you will get multiple punya. Do snanam in Ganga, you will get punya, more punya. Every day we do snanam also, but Ganga, why? Because that place is punya. Kashi is a punya sthanam. Then you have, even within our house, we know that when we go to the prayer room, there you will get a little more. You can feel the effect. So things that are run. Suppose if you are doing Gayatri Japam, they will say go to Goshala and do the Gayatri Japam. Punya gets multifold. So this place, Kurukshetram, is called as Dharma Kshetram because a lot of yajnas has happened by a lot of rishis. Hence it is called as Dharma Kshetra. In fact, the whole Bharata Bhumi, we will always call it as the land of Dharma. Because in that land, a lot of punya activities have happened. By a lot of rishis have come, they have done a lot of punyas, lot of yajnas, and all those things have happened. And therefore, this land itself is called as Punya Kshetra. So now, Dharma Kshetre, Kurukshetre, Samaveta Yuyutsavaha. Before that, Samaveta Yuyutsavaha, we'll go to this next line. Mamaka Pandavas Chaiva Kimakurvata Sanjaya. Kim. Kima. Kim. Kim means what did. What did Mamakaha. Mamakaha means my people. Who does Dhritarashtra say as my people? His own sons, Kauravas. It shows his attachment. Mamakaha. Mamakaha Pandavas Chaiva. And the Pandavas. What did my people and the Pandavas do? Akurvata. Akurvata means do. What did my people and Pandavas do? And what are they doing? Samaveta. Samaveta means assembled. They are assembled. Who are assembled? What are they assembled for? Yuyutsavaha. Yuyutsavaha means who were eager to fight. So what did my people and the Pandavas do? Who were assembled and who were eager to fight? Where? Kshatriya, Kurukshetra. In the holy land of Kurukshetra. So what did my people and Pandavas do who were assembled and who were eager to fight in the holy land of Kurukshetra? O Sanjaya. So this is what Dhritarashtra asks. Now, after this, Dhritarashtra will not come in the entire Bhagavad Gita. Dhritarashtra will not come under the entire Bhagavad Gita. Now, Sanjayo Vacha. Now the whole thing is about how Sanjaya is now describing what has happened in the battlefield. What did Sanjaya say? We will see that in the next class. Are there any questions or comments? Otherwise, we will see it in the next class from the second sloka onwards. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vishishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Gurubhyo Namah.
Hari Om Sri Gurubhyo Namah.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om. Hari Om.